There's a good chance that your organisation was designed for operational efficiency when you were smaller and priorities were stable. Now you need strategic velocity, but your functional silos create coordination overhead that kills momentum. Every strategic initiative requires handoffs across different departments, multiple approval layers, and countless meetings where people negotiate priorities. This is the organisational design challenge every growth-focused CEO faces. In this briefing, we're examining how to design an organisational structure that enables strategic execution rather than obstructing it. A quick note on format. What you're hearing is the synthesis of experts' published research and frameworks. We have worked to represent their ideas accurately whilst translating them to your specific context, that is, a CEO trying to build the organisational capabilities that enable growth. We'll learn from 7 experts who fundamentally reimagined how companies organise for growth. Matthew Skelton and Manuel Price, who created the Team Topologies framework showing how to structure teams for fast flow. Jay Gilbraith, whose STAR model remains the most comprehensive organisational design framework. Patrick Lencioni, who revealed why silos form and how to break them down. Heidi Gardner, whose research on smart collaboration shows when to collaborate and when not to. Aaron Dignan, who challenges us to think about organisations as operating systems that require upgrading. Nikolai Sigelkow and Christian Terzweich show how connected strategies require connected structures. And Marty Kagan, who's defined how product companies must organise for empowered teams and customer outcomes. We'll explore why functional structures create bottlenecks at scale, how to organise around value streams rather than functions, when teams should collaborate versus work independently, how to manage cognitive load so that teams can focus, and what organisational transformation actually requires. Let's start with team topologies, the framework that's reshaped how technology companies think about team structure. Skelton and Pice's research, documented in Team Topologies, identifies 4 fundamental team types that organisations need for the fast flow of value to customers. According to their framework, most organisational problems stem from having the wrong team types or unclear interactions. Stream-aligned teams are aligned to a flow of work from a customer or user perspective. They're organised around a product, service, customer journey, or user persona. These teams have end-to-end accountability for a value stream and can deliver value independently without constant coordination with other teams. According to Skelton and Pice, stream-aligned teams should be the primary team type in any organisation, with 6 to 9 people per team being optimal. Platform teams provide internal services to reduce the cognitive load on stream-aligned teams. Rather than every team building their own infrastructure, authentication, payments, or data capabilities, platform teams create shared services that stream-aligned teams consume. The platform team goal is to make stream-aligned teams autonomous by removing common obstacles. Enabling teams helps stream-aligned teams overcome obstacles and build new capabilities. They're the specialists who work with stream-aligned teams temporarily to address specific challenges, adopting new technology, implementing security practices, improving testing approaches, enabling teams to facilitate and coach rather than building on behalf of others. Complicated subsystem teams handle complex domains requiring specialist knowledge that would overwhelm stream-aligned teams. Examples include video encoding algorithms, mathematical models, or specialised hardware interfaces. These teams manage the subsystem so stream-aligned teams can consume it simply. Skelton and Pice built their framework on Conway's law. Organisations which design systems are constrained to produce designs which are copies of the communication structure of these organisations. In simpler terms, your software architecture mirrors your organisational structure. This creates a strategic insight. If you want to change what you build, change how teams are structured. Skelton and Pice call this the reverse Conway manoeuvre. Design your team structure to match the architect that you want to create. For companies using OKRs, this has direct implications. If your strategic OKRs require cross-functional capabilities, but your teams are organised by function, you're fighting your structure. Every OKR becomes a coordination problem requiring constant meetings and handoffs. Skelton and Pice identify 3 ways teams should interact, each with different coordination costs. Collaboration mode, is working closely together for discovery and rapid learning. This has high communication overload and should be used temporarily when uncertainty is high. Two teams working together to figure out a new approach, prototype rapidly, and they learn fast. But collaboration mode is expensive and cannot be sustained long term. X as a service mode is consuming or providing something with minimal collaboration. One team provides a service with a clear API or interface, and another team consumes it. This has low overhead and is ideal once approaches are well understood. Platform teams typically interact with stream-aligned teams this way. Facilitating mode is helping another team clear obstacles and build capability. An enabling team works alongside a stream-aligned team to help them adopt new practices or overcome specific challenges. This is temporary knowledge transfer, not permanent collaboration. The critical insight here is organizations default to collaboration mode for everything which creates meeting overload and coordination bottlenecks. Effective organizations use collaboration sparingly, X as a service for most interactions, and facilitation for capability building. Skelton and Pice emphasize that teams have limited cognitive capacity. They identify 3 types of cognitive load. Intrinsic load is the fundamental complexity of the problem domain. Extraneous load is environmental friction like poor tools, unclear processes, or excessive meetings. Domain load is the valuable mental effort of learning and problem solving. According to their research, most organizations overwhelm teams with extraneous load, leaving little capability for domain load where value is created. The solution is limiting what each team is responsible for. Skelton and Pice recommend that a stream-aligned teams own approximately 2 to 3 domains maximum. A domain might be a service, product area, or user journey. Beyond 3 domains, cognitive load becomes overwhelming and quality suffers. For organizations implementing strategic OKRs, this creates a forcing function. If you have 5 strategic priorities, you'll likely need 3 to 5 stream-aligned teams with adequate cognitive capacity to execute. Trying to layer strategic OKRs on top of teams already managing operational systems creates overload, something we see a lot at Socrates. Skelton and Pice introduced the concept of organisational sensing, continuously monitoring whether your team structure and interactions are enabling or blocking fast flow. They recommend tracking several signals: how long it takes to deploy a change, how much coordination is required, are teams waiting on other teams, how often do dependencies block progress, are teams experiencing cognitive overload. When these signals indicate problems, the solution often isn't better communication or more meetings. It's restructuring teams or changing interaction modes. This is definitely a comprehensive modern framework for team structure. Their key insights: organise teams around value streams, stream-aligned, not functions. Manage cognitive load by limiting team scope to 2 to 3 domains. Use different interaction modes strategically rather than defaulting to constant collaboration. And your team structure shapes what you can build. For organizations executing a strategy with OKRs, team topologies provide clear guidance. Strategic OKRs should align with stream-aligned teams and include end-to-end accountability, an approach we at Socrates see working well. But this raises the question, how do you systematically think through all the design choices involved in organisational structure? And this is where J. Galbraith's STAR model provides comprehensive framework. Galbraith's STAR model, documented across multiple works culminating in designing organisations, identifies 5 interconnected elements that must align for effective organisational design. Strategy. This determines direction. It defines where to play and how to win, which customers to serve and which capabilities to build. Strategy is the cornerstone because all other design choices flow from it. According to Galbraith, the fundamental rule is structure follows strategy. Structure defines authority and reporting relationships. This includes basic organisational chart designs, functional versus divisional, centralised versus decentralised, spans of control, and management layers. Structure creates the formal channels for decision-making and resource allocation. Processes are information and design flows that cut across structure. These include planning processes, budgeting, performance management, and cross-functional coordination mechanisms. Processes bridge the gaps that structure create. Rewards align individual goals with organisational objectives. This includes compensation, promotions, recognition, and what other behaviours get reinforced. According to Galbraith, rewards are often overlooked but are critically important for ensuring that people pursue strategic priorities rather than local optimisation. People encompass HR policies and practices, hiring profiles, development programs, performance standards, and succession planning. The people dimension ensures you have the right capabilities in the right positions. Galbraith's insight that organisational dysfunction almost always stems from misalignment between these 5 elements. You can't simply change structure and then expect results. You must adjust processes, rewards, and people practices simultaneously. For example, if you reorganise around value streams but maintain functional performance reviews and rewards, people will continue optimising for their function rather than the value stream. If you implement OKRs and a process change without adjusting the structure to support cross-functional execution, the OKRs will fail because teams can't execute independently. Galbraith provides frameworks for the fundamental structure decisions that organisations face. The primary choice is between functional structure, organisation by expertise, engineering, sales, or marketing, and divisional structure, organising by product, geography, or customer. Functional structures create deep expertise and resource efficiently but struggle with coordination across functions. Divisional structures create accountability for outcomes but duplicate resources and can lead to a loss of technical depth. Most companies at scale need some form of matrix structure, combining both dimensions. According to Galbraith, matrices get a bad reputation because organisations implement them poorly. A well-designed matrix clarifies which dimension has primary authority and which has secondary input rights. Galbraith emphasises that structure is fundamentally about power. Who makes decisions? Who controls resource? Whose priorities win when conflict arises? According to his framework, successful organisational design requires explicitly defining decision rights rather than leaving them ambiguous. This connects directly to the execution challenges of growth mandate CEOs face. If strategic OKRs require cross-functional work, but the decision rights remain with functional leaders, the strategic work gets deprioritised when it conflicts with functional goals. Galbraith's STAR model reminds us that organisational design isn't just drawing boxes. It's aligning strategy, structure, processes, rewards, and people. When CEOs reorganise and nothing changes, it is usually because they adjust the structure but leave processes and rewards misaligned. For organisations that create strategic goals using frameworks like OKRs, this means that you can't just create OKRs across a functional structure and expect cross-functional execution. You need to adjust the structure towards value streams, implement coordination processes, align rewards to strategic outcomes, and develop people's cross-functional capabilities. But even with well-designed structures, silos emerge. Patrick Leosoni's research reveals why functional silos are so persistent. According to his analysis, silos don't form because people are political or territorial. They arise from a fundamental misunderstanding of goals. When functional leaders optimise for their department's success rather than the company's success, silos are inevitable. The head of engineering optimises for technical excellence and the system stability. Head of sales optimises for closed deals and revenue. The head of product optimises for customer satisfaction and feature adoption. Each is doing what seems rational from their perspective. The problem isn't that these goals are wrong. It's that they are disconnected from an overarching shared goal that forces coordination. When priorities conflict, each functional leader fights for their department because that's how they're measured and rewarded. Lencioni's solution is what he calls a thematic goal, a single, qualitative, temporary top priority that requires all functions to cooperate. The thematic goal sits above functional objectives and forces trade-off conversations. For example, a thematic goal might be Successfully launch and scale our enterprise product line for 2 quarters. This clarifies what matters most. When sales want to prioritise SMB deals that close faster, the thematic goal settles the debate. Enterprise comes first. When engineering wants to refactor infrastructure, the thematic goal clarifies, only if it enables enterprise launch. According to Lencioni, thematic goals work because they're temporary, they create urgency, they're qualitative, allowing flexibility in approach, and shared, requiring collaboration to achieve. Lencioni emphasises that you can't break silos through communication alone. According to his research, team building activities and communication training don't solve structural problems. What breaks silos is shared work on shared goals with shared accountability. When functional leaders have to jointly deliver an outcome, they are forced to coordinate. When they're held collectively accountable for results, they stop optimising locally and start collaborating. This requires explicit design, cross-functional teams, shared metrics, collective rewards, and a unified leadership team. Lencioni's work emphasises that the executive team must model silo-breaking behaviour. If executives operate as functional representatives rather than company leaders, no structural change will overcome. Lencioni reveals that silos persist not because of politics, but because of conflicting goals. His thematic goal approach forces functions to collaborate. For organisations using strategic OKRs, this aligns perfectly. Your strategic OKRs should serve as thematic goals that force functional leaders to coordinate and make trade-offs. But even with shared goals and better structure, the question remains, when should teams collaborate and when shouldn't they? Heidi Gardner's research provides crucial guidance on smart collaboration. Gardner's research, documented in Smart Collaboration, reveals a paradox. Collaboration creates enormous value when done well, but destroys value when done poorly. According to her findings, organisations that excel at cross-boundary collaboration achieve better client outcomes, higher revenue growth, and stronger innovation. But most organisations collaborate badly, creating coordination overhead without capturing benefits. The problem isn't too little collaboration, it's indiscriminate collaboration where teams collaborate on everything rather than selectively what matters. Gardner identifies specific conditions where collaboration creates disproportionate value. According to her research, collaboration pays off when complexity is high and no single person or team has the full answer. Strategic problems require multidisciplines benefit from collaboration. Routine just doesn't work. Client or customer needs are multifaceted. When customers need integrated solutions across multiple domains, collaboration creates better outcome. When needs are simple, coordination cost exceeds benefit. Knowledge integration creates unique value. When combining different perspectives generates insights that neither party would have reached on their own, collaboration is worth the effort. When work is addictive, and you do your part, I do mine, collaboration is overhead. Relationships strengthen future work. When collaboration builds trust and understanding that enables faster work later, the investment pays off. When it's one-time work, collaboration may not be worth it. Gardner documents high costs that organisations ignore. Collaboration requires time and energy that could have been spent on direct value creation. It creates coordination complexity and decision-making delays. It can dilute accountability when everyone is responsible, but no one owns outcome. And it creates burnout when many people are pulled into too many collaborative efforts. According to Gardner's research, high performers often become bottlenecks in collaboration. They're invited to every cross-functional meeting because they're valuable contributors, but this fragments their time so badly they can't focus on their highest value work. Gardner advocates for selective, structured approaches to collaboration rather than defaulting to collaboration. Organisations should clarify when collaboration is required versus when independent work is fine. Make the default independent work with explicit triggers for collaboration. Design collaboration intentionally with clear objectives, defined roles, and time boundaries. Avoid open-ended collaboration that expands to fill the available time. Rotate collaboration responsibilities so the same high performers aren't constantly pulled into everything. Develop broader collaboration capability across the organisation. And measure collaboration costs alongside collaboration benefits. track time spent in cross-functional meetings and coordination, make the overhead visible. Gardner's research reveals that collaboration is expensive and should be deployed strategically. And this aligns perfectly with Skelton and Pice's interaction modes. Use collaboration for high uncertainty strategic work, X as a service for routine needs, and facilitating capability building. Most organisations over-collaborate, creating the meeting overload that kills execution velocity. But reconsidering collaboration is just one aspect of how rethinking how organisations work. Aaron Dignan challenges us to think more fundamentally about organisational operating systems. Dignan's framework in Brave New Work asks us to think about organisations as operating systems that need upgrading. According to his analysis, most organisations run on legacy OS design for 20th century conditions: stable markets, predictable competition, top-down control, and efficiency optimization. That operating system fails in today's environments, requiring speed, adaptation, innovation, and distributed decision-making. Rather than optimizing the old operating system, Dignan argues that we need to upgrade to a new one built on different principles. Dignan identifies several loops that define how organizations operate. These aren't just processes, they're the fundamental patterns that shape organizational behavior. The purpose loop asks, why do we exist? What are we trying to accomplish? Many organizations have vague purpose statements that are disconnected from the daily decisioning. Dignan advocates for a living purpose that shapes choices. The authority loop asks, who decides what? Traditional organizations concentrate authority at the top. Dignan's framework distributes authority to people closest to the work with clear decision rights. The structure loop asks, how are we organized? Rather than permanent functional hierarchies, Dignan advocates for flexible, reconfigurable structures that adapt as needs change. The strategy loop asks, how do we plan and decide? Traditional organizations conduct annual planning in isolation from execution. Dignan advocates for continuous sensing and adjusting. The resources loop asks, how do we allocate time, money, and people? Traditional budgeting locks in resources annually. Dignan advocates for dynamic allocation as those priorities shift. Dignan emphasises that you can't redesign an organisation from the top down. According to his framework, meaningful change requires participation from people throughout the organisation. They need to understand why changes matter, have input into how changes happen, and autonomy to adapt to changes to their context. This contrasts with typical reorganisations announced by executives. Dignan's approach involves broad organisational sensing, collaborative design, safe-to-fail experiments, and evolutionary implementation. For growth mandate CEOs, this creates tension. You need speed, but Dignan argues that imposed change creates resistance and fails to stick. His framework suggests identifying early adopters, running experiments, learning rapidly, and expanding what works rather than mandating change. Dignan advocates replacing detailed policies with clear principles. According to his framework, principles provide guidance whilst allowing situational judgment. Policies create rigid rules that break when circumstances change. For example, rather than detailed expense policies defining what's reimbursable, a principle might be spend company money as if it were your own. Rather than approval processes for decisions, a principle might be seek input from those affected and then decide. This requires trusting people's judgment, which most traditional organisations struggle with. But Dignan argues it's essential for the speed and adaptation that growth requires. Dignan challenges us to think about organisational design as operating system design. His framework is more philosophical than the others, but it raises important questions. Are we designing for control or for adaptation? For efficiency or for learning? For top-down direction or for distributed intelligence? For CEOs trying to accelerate growth, Dignan's insight is that incremental changes to the existing operating system may not be enough. Sometimes you need fundamental upgrades to how authority, resources, and strategy work. But this needs a connection to strategic clarity. Sigelkow and Terweisch show how connected strategies require connected structures. Their work in connected strategy argues that digital technology enables fundamentally different customer relationships, which require fundamentally different organisational structures. According to their framework, traditional business models involve episodic transactions. The customer has a need, searches for a solution, purchases, consumes, and then repeats. Connected strategies eliminate friction at each step, often automating need recognition, fulfillment, and replenishment. Examples include subscription services that eliminate search and purchase friction, connected devices that automatically reorder supplies, or proactive services that fix problems before the customer even notices. Sigelkow and Terweisch identify 4 types of connected strategies, each with organisational implications. Respond to desire strategies reduce friction in fulfilling known needs. The customer wants something, you make it easier for them to get it. This requires operational excellence in fulfillment and logistics, but doesn't require deep organisational redesign. Curated offering strategies use data to personalise recommendations and offerings. This requires integration between data scientists, product teams, and operations to continuously improve recommendations. Coach behaviour strategies help customers achieve goals over time. This requires sustained relationships, outcome tracking, and intervention capabilities. Organisations need integration between product, customer success, and data teams. Automatic execution strategies anticipate and fulfill needs without customer action. This requires sophisticated integration across product, operation, and service delivery. The organisational structure must enable rapid response to automated signals. According to Sigelkow and Terweisch, connected strategies will fail when organisations maintain silos between customer-facing teams and operational teams. The traditional separation where sales and marketing touch customers, then hand off to fulfillment and service, creates breakpoints that destroy the connected experience. Their framework requires teams organised around customer journeys with end-to-end accountability. This aligns with Skelton and Pice's streamlined teams. Organise around value streams that customer experience, not internal functional boundaries. They also emphasise the need for rapid feedback loops. Connected strategies generate data about customer behaviour, which should inform product and operational improvements quickly. This requires tight integration between data, product, and operations that traditional structures present. Sigelkow and Terweisch argue that connected strategies require network organisational forms rather than hierarchy. Customer needs and responses create dynamic patterns that rigid hierarchy can't handle. According to the framework, organisations need flexible resource allocation to where customer signals indicate need. This connects to Dignan's operating system thinking and Galbraith's process design. You need structures that sense customer signals and respond rapidly rather than structures optimised for predictable, stable work. Sigelkow and Terweisch show that connected customer strategies require connected organisational structures. You can't deliver seamless customer experiences through siloed functions. This reinforces the move towards value stream structures that Skelton and Pice advocate. But particularly for product companies, how do you actually organise? Marty Kagan has spent decades defining what product operating models require. Kagan's most recent work, Transformed, addresses organisational transformation for product companies. According to his framework, most organisations claim to be product companies, but operate like project factories. Stakeholders request features, teams build them, stakeholders aren't happy with the results. Repeat. True product companies organise around empowered teams that solve customer problems and achieve business outcomes. This requires a fundamental transformation in how teams are structured, measured, and operate. According to Kagan's framework, developed across Inspired, Empowered, and Transformed, product teams need specific characteristics to be truly empowered. Stable, dictated teams of 8 to 12 people, including a product manager, designer, and engineers. Not project teams assembled temporarily, but durable teams that stay together and build deep context. Outcome accountability rather than output goals. So teams are given problems to solve and outcomes to achieve, not features to build. They're measured on customer and business results, not story points or velocity. Direct customer access and authority to discover solutions. Teams talk to customers, run experiments, and make product decisions without approval chains. Product managers are not waiters taking orders from stakeholders. Technical capability to independently build, deploy, and measure. Teams are not dependent on other teams for basic technical capabilities. This aligns with Skelton and Pice's stream-aligned team concept. Kagan describes a product operating model distinct from traditional models. According to this framework, product strategy identifies which customer problems and business outcome teams will pursue. Strategy creates focus so teams are not pulled in too many directions. Team topology organizes around products, platforms, or experiences rather than features or products. This is explicitly aligned with Skelton and Pice's 4 team types. Product discovery is ongoing work to validate ideas before building. Teams spend roughly 40% of their time discovering what to build through customer research, prototyping, and testing. Product delivery builds validated solutions and measures results. Teams own the outcomes, monitor metrics, and iterate based on what they learn. And product culture values learning, customer centricity, and outcome focus over output. Leaders coach rather than direct, asking questions rather than providing answers. Kagan's recent work addresses why product transformations fail. According to his analysis, most failures stem from partial transformations that change structure without changing authority, measurement, or leadership behaviour. Companies reorganise into product teams, but still require feature approval from stakeholders. They talk about outcomes, but measure teams on velocity. They say they want empowerment, but leaders still direct solutions. These contradictions create confusion and cynicism. Successful transformation requires changing simultaneously team structure, decision authority, success metrics, resource allocation, leadership behaviours, and hiring profiles. Kagan emphasises that this is genuinely difficult, which is why most transformations fail or can take years. Kagan insists that product teams aren't allowed to work on anything autonomously. They're empowered within strategic boundaries. According to his framework, product strategy provides focus: which customer segments, which problems, which outcomes. Teams have autonomy around how to achieve outcomes, but not which outcomes to pursue. This connects directly to the OKR approach. Strategic OKRs define outcomes that empower teams pursue. The OKRs provide focus and alignment. Team empowerment provides the velocity and innovation needed to achieve them. These 7 experts reveal that organisational for design for strategic execution is multifaceted and interconnected. Skelton and Pice show us how to structure teams for fast flow around value streams rather than functions. Galbraith reminds us that structure alone is not enough. We must align processes, rewards, and people simultaneously. Lencioni explains why solos persist despite everyone knowing that they're problematic, and provides the thematic goal approach to break them down. Gardner helps us understand when collaboration creates value versus when it's expensive overhead. Dignan challenges us to think about upgrading our entire organisational operating system. Sigelkow and Terweiss show how connected customer strategies require connected organisational structures. And Kagan defines what most empowered product teams actually require, not as a theory, but as practical implementation. Common themes for organisations wanting to execute the strategy with OKRs: organise around the value streams customer experience, not internal functional boundaries. Create stream-aligned teams with end-to-end accountability for outcomes. Manage cognitive load so that teams can focus on 2 to 3 domains maximum. Use collaboration selectively for high uncertainty strategic work, not as the default for everything. And align processes, rewards, and leadership behaviour with the new structure, not just an organisational chart. So, let's make this actionable now. Let these frameworks provide clear guidance. First, Audit whether your current structure enables or blocks your strategic OKRs. If your strategic priorities require cross-functional work, but your structure is functional, you have fundamental misalignment. Second, identify the value streams that matter most for growth. These should map to your strategic OKRs. Third, consider whether you need stream-aligned teams organised around those value streams with end-to-end accountability. Fourth, assess cognitive load. Are teams trying to manage too many domains whilst also executing strategic OKRs? If yes, you either need more focused teams or fewer priorities. Fifth, examine interaction modes. Are teams collaborating on everything when X as a service would work better? Is collaboration overhead killing velocity? The fundamental question these experts pose: is your organisation structure designed for the strategy you need to execute or for the strategy you executed 5 years ago? Most companies trying to restart stalled growth discover that their structure is the constraint. The work these experts describe is genuinely difficult, which is why most organisations avoid it. But incremental improvements to broken structures will not restart growth. Sometimes you need a fundamental redesign.